We are going to look today at how to export patterns from Clo3D as real full-size patterns to make real garments. So here I've got a top that I've pattern cut in Clo3D that's based on a garbage bag. And over here are the patterns. Yeah, that's great. So there's a couple of things you need to do to just double check that your patterns are okay before you start getting them ready to print. And that would be making sure the seams match. So the way that I do that would be using the edit pattern tool here and clicking on a seam that's going to join another seam. So this is the shoulder seam here, and this is the other shoulder seam, the front here. Whoop, whoop. Okay, and as you can see, and you click on it, the length will come up. So this is 330.2, that's that shoulder seam, and this one is 330.2. But if it was a different number, what you could do is right click and go to change length, and then you could type in 330.2, and I would always make that change length coming from both sides, so it doesn't all get added or taken off at one side or the other, it gets added or taken off at both sides of the line. Here, this tall rectangle, that's the cuff that goes in the armhole, and you can add up the length of the armhole by holding down the shift key. So again, I've got the edit pattern tool, and I'm going to click down. This is the armhole here. This, and this. That's the arm. Okay, so I'm going to add up if I want to make sure that my cuff fits into my armhole, I can click on all of the lines in the armhole and by holding down shift. So I'll start here. So I've clicked on that, and you see it says 172.3, and I'm holding down shift, clicking on the next line, and it adds up. You see the number in my cursor is both of those numbers added together. And I'm going to click on the back armhole, and then the number goes up, and then the next line, and the next line. So that's 634.4. Great. And then this is the seam that would be joining it. So I want to make a note of that, 634.4, 634.4. I'll click off of that, and then I'll click here. What's that at? 635. So I want it to be 634.4. Okay, so there's not a lot in it, but if I want to change it, I can click on it and right click, change length. I'm changing that to 634.4. I'm going to make that change at both ends. And because this is a rectangle, I'm also going to change it on this side. So I'm clicking here, right click, change length, 634.4. Okay, so then you go around your whole pattern and you check this. So that you check that your side seams match each other, and any other pattern pieces that are joining, you check those with the same length. Right, so that's you walked the pattern, or a version of walking the pattern. And next we're going to add seam allowance. So over here on the right hand side there's this tool, the seam allowance tool. So click down on that, then click down and drag to create a bounding box around all of your patterns. And then we're going to go over here to property editor and just check that the width of the seam allowance is set correctly. So I think this is currently set to millimeters, which is why it says 10, but we want a 1 centimeter seam allowance, which is 10 millimeters. So I've got 10. Great. And you can change the corners or how the corners work, but I think I'm just going to leave it as this because this looks like it's okay. And yeah, can you see here it now has the seam allowance added all the way around. Right. Okay, so to set the size of the paper for the printer, we need to add paper like as a fabric. So we're going to go here to Object Browser, where you can see the fabric that I'm already using for my 3D garment. Here I'm going to click Add, which will add a new fabric. I'm going to right click and rename this as paper. There we go. And in a minute we'll deal with the dimensions and the settings for that. But first what I want to do is, first what I want to do is assign everything as paper. So make sure I'm on the transform pattern tool. I'm going to click down, create a bounding box around all of my pattern pieces, and I'm going to make them all paper. So I'm going to click down and drag paper onto it, and then they're all set to paper. Great. And also, because we have so many mirrored patterns here, in real life you would cut out a pair, a front left and a front right, back left, back right. But for the paper patterns, you only need one side of this. You need one side, and you'd cut that out twice. You'd cut out a pair in fabric. And to save space on the printing, I'm going to get rid of anything that is a pair. So I'm going to click down on this and delete. Delete. Get rid of one of those back necks. Oops. Get rid of this one here. Oops. There we are. And then also with this yoke, because it's symmetrical, we could do like a cut on fold. So I could get rid of it, could cut this in half to save a bit of space. So I'm going to use this internal polygon line tool, and click sort of on the center back, and then enter, and then the edit pattern tool, click on that line, right click and cut, which will split it into two pieces, and then I'm going to cut that off, get rid of that, delete. So now we have half, or the correct amount of pattern pieces for what we need. Right, so for the next stage, we need to go over here to the top right, and where it says simulation, we're going to go to print layout. Where? These are your patterns. This is the paper, or the idea of the paper. If we click on paper, we can set the dimensions of that. So for the plotter, which is what we're going to use, the plotter at Evolution House, the width of that print bed is 91 centimeters, and I've been advised that we should set it to 89 so that nothing is cut off. Plotters are printers that print on a big roll of fabric, and they're used for things like architectural drawings or large scale fine line drawings. So we have to set the width, so like from here to here, but the length can be continuous, so it can be a very long length. It just prints off in a big roll. So we need to set that width to 89. So over here, so if we clicked on paper, in property editor, it'll be the property of the paper, and we'll go down here to centimeter, the roll width centimeter, and we'll change that to 89. Great. And then what we're going to do is we're going to ask the software to nest or efficiently place all the pattern pieces on the paper. Because the fabric the pattern pieces have a grain line, the software thinks that the patterns have to stay on their grain lines for this layout, because it is assuming that it's a layout for fabric, and grain line and placement of fabric is really important. But here, where we're just trying to collate the pattern pieces onto paper, we don't really have to take the grain line into consideration. So a way that we can help with this, or allow it to have more different kinds of placement, is to go here to Nest Settings and set the grain line instead of just one-way grain direction. If we can set that to four-way, that allows for different placements, so it can help it sort of jigsaw all together and collate it all together. And then I'm going to press nest patterns, and this has caused my screen recording to crash a couple of times, so I'm going to stop the recording now. And but what I will be doing is pressing nest patterns, and then the program will work out the most efficient placement. But I'm going to stop now and just stop this recording. Okay, so you can see here that the software has nested the patterns as efficiently as it can in the dimensions of the paper. To print, we're going to go here to the snapshot button, and we're going to make sure that preset is set 1 to 1, and we can turn off or on any of the lines that we need. Depends where you're sending this. If you're sending this professionally to be manufactured, if you're in an industry and you're sending this across to a factory, you'd want all of the information there, all the annotation, all the notches, etc. But here I'm imagining that you've done your first prototype digitally, and you're going to print your patterns, and you're going to create your second prototype physically. So you can add your own annotations and grain line physically. So I'm going to make sure that I've still got pattern outlines and seam allowance, and it's definitely set 1 to 1, because the size and the dimension is really important. We don't want it to be 1.5 times as big or half as big. It needs to be like actual size. I'm going to go here to save. I'm going to make sure it's not a PNG, that we're saving it as a PDF, and I'm going to name it something that I'm going to remember. So here we go. I've got the date. This helps me remember which version I've saved, and this is a garbage bag style top. So I've labelled it with something that I will remember what it is, and I'm saving it here to my desktop, where I remember where it will be. And once you've saved that PDF, that's the file that you'll be able to send to the click and collect service for reprographics, and they'll be able to print your patterns out full size on the plotter, and where you will then prototype and test. Don't assume that your digital patterns will work perfectly. I'm going to stop the recording there now. Best of luck with all your patterns.